Why no one survived Tim Conway's funniest moments? The one thing live television was afraid of. Tim Conway never looked dangerous. That was the first mistake everyone made. On live television, silence was always the enemy. A bad joke could be rescued.
Sit and just rap without all of this silliness.
A nervous guest could be saved. A host could smile into the camera and pull the room forward before things collapsed. Then Tim Conway walked onto the stage. He didn't shout. He didn't fight for attention. He barely seemed to perform at all. And somehow, one by one, the most polished people in television completely lost control. Harvey Korman buried his face in his hands. Carol Burnett turned away from the camera, trying not to explode with laughter. Dean Martin struggled to stay smooth. And Johnny Carson, the calmest host in late-night history, eventually dropped his head onto his desk because he had no defense left. The strange part? They weren't laughing at punchlines. They were trying to survive Tim Conway. Before we explain how he did it, think about the moments everyone remembers. The dentist sketch. The slow old doctor. The elephant story. The Tonight Show appearances where Carson completely unraveled. Most people call them the funniest clips ever made. But there's a better question. Why did nobody around Tim Conway know how to stop him? Take the dentist sketch from the Carol Burnett show. Tim plays a terrible dentist while Harvey Korman sits trapped in the chair. The scene should belong to Harvey's panic. Instead, Tim quietly steals the room by refusing to acknowledge that anything is wrong. That's the trick. A normal comedian would play the dentist nervous and frantic. Tim does the opposite. He acts calm, confident, professional. Even while everything falls apart around him. The tools slip. The needle shakes. The procedure becomes a disaster. But Tim's face never changes. That gap between what his body is doing and what his expression insists is happening becomes unbearable. Harvey Korman isn't just reacting to jokes anymore. He's reacting to a man pretending chaos is perfectly normal. And the harder Harvey tries to stay in character, the funnier Tim becomes. That was the easy version of the Conway trap. The more dangerous version came when almost nothing happened at all. Look at the old man sketches. Tim walks into scenes moving slower than anyone on television had ever dared move. He pauses between words. He drags every step. He turns dead air into the entire joke. And television hated dead air. Live TV was built on rhythm. Setup. Punchline. Laughter. Move on. Tim Conway broke that rhythm on purpose. In the famous old doctor sketch, the patient desperately needs help. The room demands urgency. Tim refuses urgency completely. Every movement takes forever. Every pause stretches too long. Every second becomes uncomfortable. And that discomfort becomes hilarious. Because the audience starts asking the same question the actors are asking. How long is he willing to wait? That was Conway's real weapon. Patience. Most comedians chased laughter. Tim waited for laughter to come to him. And while he waited, everyone else started panicking. That's why even Dean Martin struggled with him. Dean's entire image was built around staying cool. Nothing rattled him. That was the brand. Then Tim showed up playing a drunk at the bar. He barely raised his voice. He spoke softly. His timing felt intentionally wrong. A line would arrive half a second too late. A pause would last slightly too long. And suddenly Dean Martin had work to do. You could see it in his eyes. He was still smiling, still smooth, but now he was calculating. Trying to keep the scene steady while Tim slowly tilted the room sideways. That's what made Conway different from loud comedians. Loud comedians attack you directly. Tim Conway disguised the attack as politeness. He looked harmless. Small frame. Soft voice. Friendly face. Like someone who accidentally wandered onto the set. But underneath that harmless mask was one of the most precise comedy minds television ever produced. And maybe that precision came from fear. Because offstage, Tim Conway wasn't fearless at all. Early in his career, he suffered such severe stage fright that he would physically get sick before performances. Friends said hearing his own name announced backstage could trigger panic. Producers eventually stopped calling him by name before entrances. They used numbers instead. That changes the way his comedy feels when you watch it again. The long pauses. The calm expression. The refusal to flinch. It wasn't emptiness. It was control. Tim Conway understood silence because he had already survived it privately. And that understanding led to the moment many people still consider the funniest collapse in television history. The elephant story. The setup looked simple. Cast members sitting together while Tim casually tells a story about a circus elephant. But what happened to Harvey Korman became legendary. At first, Harvey tries to hold it together. Professional actors were trained never to break character. Especially on shows like The Carol Burnett Show. But Tim wasn't simply telling a funny story. He was studying Harvey in real time. Every time Harvey got close to recovering, Tim added one more detail. One more image. One more ridiculous sentence delivered in that calm, polite voice. He never rushed. That's the important part. A normal comedian races toward the punchline. Tim slowed down and watched Harvey drown. And eventually Harvey couldn't survive it anymore. His hand went to his face. His shoulders collapsed. The laughter took over completely. The audience wasn't only laughing at the story. They were laughing at watching a professional lose control in real time. That became Tim Conway's signature. He didn't destroy scenes with energy. He destroyed them by making the people around him responsible for surviving the silence. That's why straight men had no defense against him. The straight man in comedy depends on rhythm. He reacts to jokes, setups, punchlines, big behavior. Tim often gave them nothing to react to. Just silence. Just waiting. And waiting is terrifying on live television. Johnny Carson understood television rhythm better than almost anyone alive. For 30 years, he controlled every conversation that happened behind that desk. He knew how to rescue weak guests. He knew how to redirect awkward moments. He always had another move. Until Tim Conway arrived. The second Tim sat down, the audience already started laughing because they knew what was coming. And Carson knew too. You could see it in that sideways grin he always gave before losing control. Johnny would try his normal tools, a quick question, a glance to Ed McMahon, a joke to move things forward. None of it mattered. Because Tim Conway could survive silence longer than anyone else in the room. That's what finally broke Carson. Not a punchline. Not a story. Helplessness. Every move Johnny made only made the moment funnier. And eventually, during one famous appearance, Carson simply gave up and laid his head down on the desk while the audience roared. The king of late night had run out of moves. Tim Conway didn't overpower people. He outweighted them. That's the difference. Even his physical comedy worked the same way. His characters constantly believed they were competent while their bodies betrayed them completely. A confident dentist whose hands can't work properly. An athlete who moves like he's assembled incorrectly. An old sheriff who can barely walk into the room. The body fails. The confidence survives. That contradiction became Conway's comedy language. And maybe that's why those clips still work decades later. The sets look old now. The suits belong to another era. The variety show format feels like a different America. But the laughter still feels alive because Tim Conway wasn't really selling jokes. He was selling cracks in perfection. For a few seconds, polished professionals stopped being polished. The smooth host stopped being smooth. The disciplined actor stopped acting. The controlled performer lost control. And audiences loved it because they recognized something real underneath it all. Everybody performs. At work. On television. In everyday life. We all wear the calm face. The professional face. The everything is fine face. Tim Conway found ways to quietly tear that mask off people without ever raising his voice. That's why the laughter felt different. It wasn't just laughter at jokes. It was relief. Relief at seeing someone else crack first. And Tim Conway understood exactly how to make that happen. He waited. Then the room broke. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like this video, subscribe to Prestige Buzz, and turn on the bell notification so you never miss another story from Prestige Buzz. And tell us in the comments which Tim Conway moment broke you the hardest. The dentist sketch? The elephant story? The old doctor? Or the night Johnny Carson finally ran out of moves?